Lord, and welcome back to Chapel of the Shepherd. Hi, I'm Pastor Phelan Destiville, and we're getting back to you now with Lecture 9. We left off with Joseph and Rachel and Leah and Laban and all the problems that Laban had, changing his wages on Joseph 10 times and just doing him wrong over and over again. And we left off at the end of chapter 37. In this lecture, we'll pick up again on chapter 38. With that, let's go to the Lord and ask Him, Lord, just open our eyes, open our ears. Lord, let us understand your word. Let's have the wisdom. Let us just have the knowledge. And let's be able to share it with those around us, that they may have their ears and eyes opened as well. And let us just put your word out there, Lord, and let the world absorb it. We thank you and praise you in the name of Yahweh and Yeshua. Amen. Praise the Lord. All right. Chapter 38 of Genesis, verse 1, to continue. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira. 2. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went in unto her. 3. And she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name 4. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. 5. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was a Chezeb, when she bare him. 6. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. 7. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. Well, that has been quite the thing for you to go against the Lord enough where he's just going to slay you. So he must have really, really been wicked in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 8. And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. 10. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. And this family just seems to not want to please the Lord in any way, shape, or form. They're bound and determined just to be genocided by their own actions. Amen. Okay. Number 11. Then said Judah Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house till Shelah, my son, be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. It was probably a good move on his hand. Verse 12. And in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and Judah was comforted and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira, the Adulamite. 13. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnath. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. 15. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. 16. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? 17. And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock, And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? 18. And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelet, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. Boy, some treacherous stuff going on back in the days. 19. And she arose and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. 20. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adullamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. 21. Then he asked the men of the place, saying, Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, There was no harlot in this place. 22. Sounds like things are cooking up a little bit. 22. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. 23. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. 24. And it came to pass, about 3 months after, that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burned. Boy, they're just dealing harshly with folks. The Lord's slaying them, they're burning them. Man, they're having it rough back in the day. 25, to continue. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man whose these are, am I with child? And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose are these, the signet and bracelets and staff. 26. And Judah acknowledged him and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Selah my son, and he knew her again no more. 27. And it came to pass in the time of her travail that, behold, twins were in her womb. 29. And it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. 29. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out, and she said, How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharaz. And 30, to complete this chapter. And afterwards came out his brother that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zair. All right. Seems like there's been quite a drama going on in this family for quite some time. And it's probably just going to get worse the way it sounds. Okay, to continue, chapter 39, verse 1. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. 2. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now, the Lord's going to keep his hand on Joseph, and going to put him in quite a place of recognition. He's going to be known throughout the land for his position. All right, to continue. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had put into his hand. That's quite a gesture. 5. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house, and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. 6. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. He's making a name for himself. 7. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. 8. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wot not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. 9. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. Now then, can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? She's posing a question to her. 10. And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. He just flat out turned her down. 11. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and fled, and got him out. 13. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand, and was fled forth. 14. That she called unto the men of her house, and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. Now she's lying on him. 15. It came to pass, when he heard that I lift up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled, and got him out. 16. And she laid up his garments by her until his Lord came home. She's setting him up for the fall. 17. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lift up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled out. 19. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, and his wrath was kindled. She just is stoking the fire, making him hate Joseph even more. 20. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. 21. But the Lord was with Joseph, and shewed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. 22. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. 23, final verse in this chapter. Verse 23. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. If the Lord's going to have it prosper, it's going to prosper. If the Lord's going to put it down, it's going to go down. If you make the Lord mad, look forward to being possibly slain by the Lord. We just read about two men having that happen here just in the last couple chapters. Okay. Chapter 40, to continue on. And it came to pass, after these things, that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. 2. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers. 3. And he put them inward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. 4. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season inward. 5. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. Now these dreams are going to come in handy for Joseph. 6. And Joseph came into them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. 7. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpret. Interpretations belong to God. Tell me them, I pray you. 9. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. Hold up here for a moment. Remember now how, as we go through the Bible, you'll find that many places the Lord uses trees and branches and bushes and such to denote things. Like we're the branches, he's the vine, different things, trees in the garden of Eden, of good and bad, and such. These metaphors are used extensively throughout the whole Word because it makes clarity to what the Lord's trying to say, and it also makes it have a simplicity to it. All right. Let's continue on where we left off here. Verse 11. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. 13. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and shew kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. 15. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the prison, or into the dungeon, 16. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and beheld, I had 3 white baskets on my head. 17. And in them uttermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the bird did eat them out of the baskets upon my head. 18. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. 19. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the bird shall eat thy flesh from off thee. Boy, that sure doesn't sound like a good interpretation compared to the last guy. 20. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. 21. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. 22. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. 23. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him? 41. Chapter 41, verse 1. And it came to pass at the end of full 8 years, that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. 3. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. 4. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke. That was his dream. 5. And he slept and dreamed a second time. Behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with east wind sprung up after them. 7. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. 8. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Well, he's going to find there's one that can interpret it, and we're about to know who that is. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. 10. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. 11. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. 12. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard, and he told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. 13. And it came to pass, as he interpreted it to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Well, at least one of them kind of got out of the way, but it kind of is a type and shadow of the Lord being on the cross. They had one guy on one side just talking him down and just being what he was. And then he had the man on the other side who was sorrowful and repented of it. And the Lord, what did he tell him? He said, I'll see you today in paradise. I would not want to have been the guy on the other side. Because you kind of figure where he went. Okay. All right. Okay, start with 13 here. No, 14, excuse me. Okay, then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. 15. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it, and I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. 16. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. 17. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river. 18. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. 20. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. 21. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I awoke. 22. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears, withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. 25. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. 26. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. 27. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. 28. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he sheweth unto Pharaoh. 29. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. 30. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. See, we're about to have a famine here in our land, but it's not going to be of food. It's going to be for the lack of the word of the Lord, and we need to be staying on top of that. 31. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. 32. And for that the dream was doubled into Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. 33. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. 34. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. 35. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the city. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, and that the land perish not through the famine. 37. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. 38. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? 39. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as God hath shewed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. 40. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. Well, that's saying a lot. 41. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set over thee all the land of Egypt. 42. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. 43. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. He gave him quite a spot. That's like walking out the door, and all of a sudden, one day you're picking up the trash, the next day you're the mayor. Amen. 44, to continue. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. 45. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath Paneah. Okay, Zaphnath Paneah. Okay. And he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. 46. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out of the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. 47. And in the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. 48. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. 49. Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the seas, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. 50. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. 51. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. 52. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. 53. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. 54. And the 7 years of dearth began to come according as Joseph has said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in all lands of Egypt there was bread. 55. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you do. 56. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. 57, to finish off this chapter. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was sore in all lands. We'll stop here and we'll pick up next time with chapter 42. Now we notice that Joseph's been thrown into prison because he wouldn't mess around with Pharaoh's wife. He interpreted the dreams of the two men, which in turn got him to interpret the dream of Pharaoh, which in turn got him put in charge of all the land, of everything except being the throne. Pharaoh told him, You're in charge of everything. I'm only ahead of you when it comes to the throne. And we're going to find next time where Joseph's brothers are going to be brought to him, and they're going to be reunited because they're going to come because of the famine in the land, and they need to purchase and get grain. And the person they have to go to is the brother that they threw in the ditch. So it's going to be quite interesting. It's a great story and a great account in the Bible of things, of how the Lord works. So we'll leave off there. And with that, stay in the Lord's Word. Get in it, stay in it every day, even if it's just for a little while. Every day is a good day with God and with His Word. And with that, love the Lord, love your neighbor, love yourself, take care, God bless, and we'll see you next time.